uh, Hi, my name is Gil Robson. I'm a race director for Mind the Ducks. Today with, today with me are Jessie George and Nathan Price. They are 2024 Mind the Ducks overall female and male winners. Mind the Ducks is a 12-hour endurance event during which participants run or walk 1 mile loop at Charles C. Sexton Park, formerly known as North Palms Park in Webster, New York. Nathan Price is the third time winner of Mind the Ducks in the race's 12-year history. Congratulations, Nate.
Thank you.
And for Jesse, it was the first Mind the Ducks win, but what a win it was. So I will not exaggerate if I say that we had a privilege to witness world-class ultramarathoner and world-class performance at the Mind the Ducks this year. Jessie improved the overall female race record by almost 10 miles. After this moment, Jessie's performance ranks number 6 in the world in 2024 and number 1 in the US. If we take the same results and put them in 2023, it would rank top 30 in the world and would be number 2 in the US. So my first time I saw Jessie was actually at the 2023 Bound the Hound 6-hour out in Shortsville, where she was overall winner and she set the course record. And her performance last year at 6 hours performance was top in US and would have been top 50 in the world. So the other thing about the Hounds race is that's not a fast course. It's a crushed cinder block, which tends to be slippery to some extent. While I was watching this race, one thing that I noticed, like Jessie took off like out of the gate, like doing like 8-20 miles and even faster. And it's not uncommon for all ultra newbies, and not just ultra newbies, to start ultra too fast, run into wall, fade away by end of the ultra. So kind of like not knowing who Jessie was at that point, what she can do, I thought, that's going to happen. But as hours went by, just like it didn't seem like she was slowing down. Another thing that I noticed is like that running form was pretty much the same in the first minutes of the race. First hour, second hour, third hour. So, and overall, that was the first time when I saw it, and I was impressed. And I was excited that she signed up for Mind the Ducks, so we could see what she can do in a 12-hour race. So anyway, enough about that. What was last year? Let's care about both of you guys about the Mind the Ducks experience. And Jesse, congratulations as well on your win.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's start with the questions. Let me line up those questions on my computer. And so, all right. So the first question that I have is, what was your goal for the race before the race started? So what were you thinking, what you can accomplish, and what were the goals? So Nathan?
Yeah, well, my goal the goal for this year, like you say, my stretch goal was to get at least one more mile than I've done, which was I think 71. So 72 was kind of the goal, but uh, got 69. I won't complain at that. And I won't definitely complain about the weather since the last 2 years were not the greatest. At least this one held out for 10 of the 12 or so. But yeah, that was close. I just wanted to also, I know from last year with all the rain and everything, I was not mentally prepared for that and I got lost in my head really. So that another goal was just to stay focused on my game plan, which I did execute. So that was another goal of mine. So.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, how about you? You're still I think, I mean, consider you're still relatively new to outer world. So what goals did you set for the race and how did it go for you?
Yeah, I had two goals. I had what I thought was my more achievable goal, which was 72 miles. Because I think that was the previous or close to the previous female record. And then my reach goal was 80 miles. And I'm happy with how things turned out. I pretty much hit my reach goal. I think I knew going into it because I'd never done anything that long that I was going to have to call an audible. So I knew that around the quarter time mark, around 4 hours in, was when I was going to have to decide whether or not I was going to stick with 72 or whether I thought 80 was achievable. So that was when I decided to go for 80, and I'm happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And Jesse, what was your walk run plan? Did you plan to walk any distance or just how that go? Did you play by the ear?
Yeah, I kind of played it by ear. I knew in the beginning I was going to try to do a lot more running than walking. I think on average, the first maybe 4 to 5 hours, I was trying to run for 4 to 5 miles consistently before I would stop at my aid station, and I wasn't taking any walk breaks. The stop at my little aid station was my break per se. And then around mile, I think 65 was when I had to start taking some serious walk breaks. And every 2 to 3 miles, I would do like a 0.1 to 0.2 mile walk break. And that seemed to do well for me up until the very end.
Mhm. Nathan, what was your
Well, I've been tinkering with that myself, and I pretty much started out with it was running for two, yeah, running for 2 minutes and then walking for 30 seconds. And I started that from the get-go, which was very hard to do because I like everyone else is just, going out and I, definitely have gone out way too fast before, or even a lot faster and run for a lot more time. But I tried to stick to it with 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and then after 4 hours, it decreased to I think it was like every 4 hours, I decreased like 15 seconds, still like so 145, walk 30 seconds, and then all the way to the end. So
mm,
yeah.
was good. Yeah, and what was your, as far as like other important thing in autos is the nutrition. So what was your nutrition plan about how often you drink, what you were drinking, what you were eating, all that stuff. So Nathan, we'll start with you then, Mr. Jesse.
Well, with this time, I try to drink about the 20 ounces of my hydration mix every hour. And luckily with the hydration mix that I use, they just came out with a new formulation that included um, uh, well, the way I mixed it was like 90 grams of carbs and like 350 calories. So basically, all I had to do was drink. I didn't really have to eat much. I mean, I had a banana now and then. But yeah, that was basically trying to stay consistent with that, which I did mostly until like near hour 11. Then I didn't really want to eat or drink anything. So yeah.
Mm. Jesse, how about you?
This is an interesting one. I am notoriously bad at eating and drinking during the races, so ultra running is probably a really bad sport for me. Um, And when I did the Bound for the Hound 6 hours, I barely consumed anything. I'm not sure what went wrong, why I didn't do anything like that. But I didn't have a strict goal for mine, the ducks, because I do have a very hard time taking in calories when I'm running. So I just wanted to drink as much water, and I supplemented with Gatorade, as much water and Gatorade as possible. And then I had a lot of gels that I went through, and I did instant mashed potatoes, and those actually worked really well for me. So I actually did a lot better. It was pretty much every time I stopped at the aid station, I would try to drink as much as I could. I'd refill my handheld water bottle, and then I would eat as much as possible, and I would take a gel. And overall, it worked pretty well. Around the 10-hour mark was when I was having a really hard time taking in any more calories. But I ended up I think I took in total about 5,000 calories, and so I was happy with that. I still have a lot of tweaking left to do. There's a science to it, and I haven't figured out the science yet, but I'm getting there.
Mhm. And so, but you are like hour 10, when you're saying, was it just all foods or specific foods? Because one thing that I have experienced when I was actively doing autos was my taste buds changed throughout the race. Whatever I could tolerate at the beginning race was something that was not, I could not look at it. At the end of the race, I could switch to something else. So was it how was it for you? Was it like all foods or just specific foods? What do you have?
It seemed to be all of the foods that I have brought with me. The only thing I was able to really that I could eat after the 10-hour mark were some pickles. So in the future, I might try some salt tabs. And my body probably just really wanted even more salt than I was trying to take in. But the pickles were about the only thing I could take in at that point.
Mm, okay. So so you had the plan, you had this nutrition workout and all that stuff. So did you make any adjustments? I think you mentioned, yes, you mentioned that you had adjusted your goals, but overall just executing the plan what you had. Did you need to make any adjustment during the race? And if so, what were they?
Yeah. Um, I didn't have to make too many other changes to the plan. I think the only thing that I didn't really account for that uh was hard to work around was it ended up a lot warmer than I thought it was going to by the middle of the day, and the sun came out, and I just wasn't expecting that level of heat. But there really wasn't much I could do around that. I think I tend not to have a super solid plan going into the races. I have these general goals and I have general things that I want to do, but I find that I do better if I feel like I have a lot more leeway with my pacing, with what I'm taking in, or with anything like that. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's hard for me to say what didn't go to plan when I didn't have a solid plan going in. I think that's going to have to change as I keep racing, especially if I do longer races. It's going to be a lot more important to be on top of my hydration and nutrition and my pacing. But that's not much of an answer, but that's the only
Yeah.
answer I have right now.
Yeah, and I mean, actually, it's not too bad because it's more like I was over planned always, but and never any of the plans did not go how I planned, and I always had to make adjustments and all that stuff. But what I realized it's good to have a plan, and what you're saying actually makes more sense. What I was doing, over planning, and then being frustrated that plans did not work. But if you have like what I ended up doing is pretty much what you're doing right now is more like on the whim, adjust depending what's happening at the race. So that's probably is better than I was like over planning and then frustrated that didn't go by the plan. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. So, Nate?
Yeah, I try to use it as a guideline, really. Just have a guideline set
Mhm.
up, and you're gonna have to adjust some things during the race because they're most likely not gonna go according to plan.
Mhm.
Luckily for me, this race it kind of did for most of it. So yeah, the heat did get a little warm. I'm like, okay, the sun wasn't supposed to come out like that. Okay, but we'll just have to go through with that. Just keep going, and if it gets cloudy, good. But yeah, for the most part, everything did kind of go according to plan with very few adjustments I needed to do. So I was actually happy with that.
So Nate, I know that you're competitive as well, and you did not hide the fact before that you want to win the race. So just and you had some competition as also, but at what point you knew that you will be in the leads, we're going to be winning the race, and how did it change?
Um, the only time that I thought I was, well, I think when I was in the league, because I didn't look at that leaderboard. I try not to until way, way into the race. Um, I did notice that I passed John one time. I knew I passed him and lapped him, so I figured he was my main competition, barring from everyone I saw there. So after I did pass him that one time. I'm not exactly sure what mile it was. I did stop and check the board, and then I did see that I was, and then I was right back to my my one walk thing and just keep moving.
Yeah, very good. Jesse? I mean, I'll start with that saying that I would have been more surprised that you would lose it than you
Yeah.
lose a race, and knowing what happened at the 6 hour race, and if you would like be coming in second place, but you never know. But so when did you knew that it's in the bag, and did it change anything for you?
Um, I think maybe at the halfway mark, I was pretty confident. I knew I still felt really good. So at that point, I was pretty confident that I was gonna win for the female division. Um, and I think I wasn't too worried, or I wasn't too focused on that, because I was more focused at that point. I was more focused on hitting the 80 miles. I wasn't as focused on where my place was. I wanted to hit my mileage goal. But yeah, I'd say about the halfway mark was when I felt confident that unless something crazy happened, that I'd win for
Mhm.
females.
So more or less, what I'm hearing, you guys were running your own race, regardless what happens around you. So, okay.
Hmm.
Very good. So, yeah, just right now, just one thing before we started recording this interview, you're just talking to Nathan, saying like, we don't know nothing about you. You just appeared there right now. Just we'd like to hear more about you, your background, and how did you start running? How did you get into ultras? What prompted you ultras? Have you done any other sports? And what was your first ultra marathons? And that's Jesse. Go ahead and.
Yeah. I didn't start running until college, and it wasn't competitively. I did alpine skiing or downhill skiing,
Hmm.
and we do what's called like dryland training, which is off-season training. And I wanted to do more training, but the downhill team wouldn't do it. The Nordic ski team did. So they were the ones who took me under their wing, and that was when I started running. And I think I did my first 5K when I was maybe 20. Um, and then my first ultra marathon was, I think, when I was 30. So that would be 2 years ago was my first. I just did a local 50K, and that was my first ultra marathon, and I hit the wall hard. It was a disaster. I think I had heat stroke. I got sunburn. I hit the wall. I don't remember the last 5 miles. It was a mess. So I've gotten better since then, but that was how I got into running. I don't really know why I decided to do ultras. I think I'd done a lot of halves. I'd done a couple marathons, and I just decided why not go farther and see what happens.
So now, when you said you didn't start running until you're 30, I'm thinking like, good Lord, just we have somebody who is naturally so talented that it's like it doesn't start till 20. But you had athletic background, so you were doing like downhill skiing, so it was not like you were just off the couch and on suddenly like in running all that stuff. So, all right, Nate, how about you? What's your background running and what ultrason?
Uh, well, I kind of been running. I did like track in college, and no, I didn't really. I one time in high school I did cross country and hated it. I was like, who needs to run longer than a 5K? Um, so fast forward after college, um, um, my wife's family got together and was this thing called Ragnar, the which is a team event, a group. We get, I think there's like 12 people together, and you were get this different sections, and you run this crazy long thing from, I think ours was from Saratoga to Lake Placid or something like that. Um, so I started preparing for that in 2013. And then 2014, I was doing obstacle course racing. Um, and so in order to do better at that, I started getting into running more. And my first ultra was in 2014. I ran the Mendon 50K, which was an experience, especially with all the elevation. It was, yeah. I got about good 3 laps into it, and the last 2 I was trying to figure out where I was and just trying to get to the end. So, but yeah, I always love running, and with the ultras, I just try to constantly see what my limits are. Really just get out there and figure out how far I can push myself.
But Nathan, do you still train with a weight vest with
Of
20
course I do.
pounds?
Yes, I
Yeah.
always do. It's almost like a second skin. Yes.
All right.
So
So Jesse, I think that, I mean, you looked up, I think that the first thought, I think it was the same as for Nate's 50 Menden Trail 50K, right? So that's the one. So, and I think another thing that I need to like just, you're slightly downplaying your achievement on that one, but pretty sure you came in second. And actually that you tickled fancy for Eddie Pell, who was like, has been the top runner in Rochester, like Western New York area for a while. She moved to Colorado. I think she moved back recently, but a lot of folks took a notice that there was somebody else who was actually at Ellie's level. So clearly, like, you know, just like second place, it's not too shabby overall. I wish in my first thought it was like second place. So what's your path to mind the Ducks? At what point you decide to sign up for this year's race? And Nathan is like already like regular, but Jesse, when did you decide to sign up for Mind the Ducks?
Yeah, I think I had it on my radar after the Bound for the Hounds last year. I know you and I had emailed back and forth, and I was aware of the race, but I didn't know much about it. And then after Bound for the Hounds, I knew I really wanted to do it. I just wasn't sure yet how it was going to fit into my race schedule. And then I want to say it was maybe February, may have been March was when I knew that it was going to work and I was committed to doing it. So that's when I started kind of trying to tailor my training a little bit more to a 12-hour.
Mhm. So, and Nate, you were just like continuing your streak.
yeah, that's just try to keep going every year. Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So I mean, I love seeing you guys. Like just your first time, like for Nate is like, I believe is sixth or seventh time.
Yeah.
So it was there.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are I heard that you, Jesse, right now, just you're planning to do next race is that in Ithaca. What was the name of the race?
I think it's just called the Cayuga 50 mile.
Correct.
There's a
Yeah.
50 miler and a 50K. I think
Mhm.
that's just what it's called. But yep,
You're doing
Saturday.
50. Yeah, you're doing 50 mile or 50K.
Yeah, doing the 50 mile. It's got over 10,000 feet of elevation. So I don't know how this is going to go, but we'll see.
Well, you used to go downhill. At least the downhills you will get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I do much better going downhill than uphill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a beautiful. I mean, I have not been on a course, but that's a beautiful course, and I have been at the race a few times as a crew member. So it's. Do you have a specific goal for that race, if may I ask, or are you superstitious
Yeah.
for not sharing that? I mean,
Yeah.
it's okay if you
No,
don't want to share it.
I'll share my goal. If I crash and burn, I crash and burn. My goal is to finish in 7 hours. The female course record is 8 hours. I'm worried about the heat. As we get closer, the heat gets higher and higher for Saturday. So, but we'll see. I'm still gonna go for 7 hours. That'll be what I hope for, as long as I don't, like I said, crash and burn.
Mhm. Okay, all right, fair enough.
Yep.
Now, so just again, like I know a little bit about Nate, but I don't know nothing, not too much about you. So, how do you train? How often you go on training? Mornings, evenings? What's your weekly mileage? Do you incorporate intervals, threshold training, and tell us as much as you can about your training. So we want to learn about you. So
For me or for Nathan, sorry.
for you, Jesse.
Okay, yeah. I try to do a minimum of 90 miles a week. And I do mornings and afternoon training sessions. In the mornings, I do exclusively trail runs with my dog. And those are all just, that's when I do my zone 2 base miles. And then in the afternoons, I do one progression workout a week, one tempo, and one speed at a minimum. And then Saturdays are when I do my long runs, which are usually I break it up. I do half of it's trail running, and then the other half I try to do like a hilly road route. But that's generally what I do for my training.
Do you have a training plan, or do you just wing it?
I just wing it. I really should have a plan. I don't think any trainer would want to deal with me. I just wing it.
Okay. Interesting. Hey, it works for you, so
Yeah.
I complain. So, Nate, I do remember from last time we had this similar interview that you work running with the Great West, and you confirm you're still doing that. So,
Yes.
and then tell us the same thing. So how often cross training do you weekly mileage?
I averaged I progressed up. I think at the peak I was doing about 60 miles a week. And I do like like a tempo run like on a Monday, Tuesdays like intervals. Um, and both the intervals and the tempo run are all with the weight vest, and my long runs on Saturday and are with sometimes with the weight vest depending on how long it is. Carrying around 20 pounds on 30 miles is not very good on the shoulders. But um and then I cross train on 1 or 2 days a week. So it's about in 5 days a week total, I guess, in there. And I try to have a somewhat of a, again, not plan, but guideline. So, and depending on how I feel and stuff, but yeah, I try to keep it like that.
So I do have a follow-up question for Jesse. So Jesse, how often you do a long runs, and what's your typical long run is, and do you do ever back-to-back long runs as well?
Yeah. So I do long runs pretty much every Saturday unless I'm tapering. Um, and I try to do at least 20 miles, anywhere from 20 to 24 miles for my long run. And then I don't usually do back to back for my long runs. I think usually my weekdays are so heavy with the doubles, and that's when I do a lot of my speed and tempo work, that after my long run Saturday, I'm usually so cooked that on Sunday it's better for me to just do like a fun, easy, like 4 to 8 mile trail run. I think once I start looking at longer distances, I'm gonna have to start incorporating some back-to-back long runs, but not yet.
Mm. Yeah, okay. That's interesting overall. Thanks for sharing that information. So anyway, just like this was all about running and all that stuff, but besides running, we are human beings as well. So just like would be curious to learn, what do you guys do for a living? Jesse, we'll start with you, and then Nate.
I'm really lucky. I get to work remote and I work for a company called Loyal. We're making the first health span and lifespan extension drug for dogs. I'm a program manager there. So I just oversee one of the drug programs in its entirety. So very lucky. Love my job.
Did you like where did you get did you have the education for that, or just did you fall in that company, or what, how did you get to that?
A little bit of both. My background, I got my degree in animal science from Cornell, and then I got my MBA from the Simon School of Business. So I have a good mix. That was how I end up a little bit business, a little bit animal science. So that was how I ended up
Mhm.
in biotech.
Mhm. Very good. Thank you. Nathan.
Well, I also work from home exclusively, and I like it. And I work for the University of Rochester in IT and been there for going on 20, 21, 22 years.
Hmm,
Yeah,
long
so,
time. So
yeah.
so besides running, do you have guys any other hobbies? What you do? Like Nathan, you mentioned you do like obstacle racing? Do you still do it, or do you? Have you kept-
Haven't done it since COVID, but I hope to get back into it probably next year. But yeah, aside from that, I like to do jigsaw puzzles. Um, and I do disc golfing. I do like to do disc golf too. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, cool, Jesse.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of hobbies outside of running. It takes up a lot of my time. But no, I still ski in the winter. Um, I grew up riding horses too. I don't do it as much as I used to, but I try to ride whenever I can. And then I love reading. That's probably my biggest, besides running and work, my biggest time sink or hobby would be reading. I'm a voracious reader. So those are my hobbies.
Yeah. What kind of books do you read, or do you read books? I'm assuming you're reading
Yeah,
books.
yeah, I'll read just about anything. I like a lot of like sci-fi, high fantasy, thrillers. Pretty much the only books I don't read are self-help books, which would probably do me a lot of good, but I can't do it.
That's funny. Um, so I do want to go back to actually a question, follow-up question about the ultra running and running overall. And I'm just curious if you, Jesse, if you have a role models in the ultra world, or do you just wing it how you feel yourself? So just, but anyway, who are your idols, or just people who you look up to in outer world?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's kind of an obvious one, but Carrie Walter is probably one of my biggest role models in the ultra world. She's just a really, really cool, down to earth person, and her mentality and how she looks at ultra running, I think is kind of unique. Um, so she's probably one of them. As far as general runners, I also really like Molly Seidel. She's a marathon runner. Um, but yeah, Carrie DeWalter is probably my big one.
Mhm. Do you pick through? Do you get their advice, what they give for training plans, or just mostly just approach to running? Or
Mostly just their approach to running. A lot of them I just kind of follow on social media, and they'll kind of post about their outlook on training and how they maybe got through a hard spot in a race or anything like that. And those are kind of the things that I look for, I find helpful, just knowing how they think about things and process during races.
so, okay, on that, I think you mentioned on the race, you're on the race that you had the first hard spot you hit at hour 10, and second one was just before, like about 30 minutes to go, then you were done. Is that true statement, or did you have other tough patches in minor ducks?
Yeah. Um, I think I felt surprisingly good up until the 10-hour mark. I noticed at about, I think the 9-hour mark, my lower back was really sore because I just being on my feet and running for that long was different, but I still otherwise felt fine. The 10-hour mark was when mentally I could feel myself kind of hitting the wall. And then pretty much at the 11-hour mark was when I knew that if I kept going, I was going to most likely hurt myself, or I felt like if I kept going, I might hurt myself because I could feel my form go. And I got surprisingly and embarrassingly emotional at the 11-hour mark. That may have also been the calorie deficit, but my husband showed up to cheer me on, saw him, cried. My mom showed up, saw her, cried. It was like everything was making me cry. And I was like, I think this is my sign that maybe I need to eat a little bit and stop running. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. And Nathan, I don't think I ever asked you if you had any like ultra idols that you will look up to, or just pick up their brain.
Not no one specifically. I do like a little kind of a research on YouTube about, people's approaches to ultra marathons and stuff. So I get a vast array of them. I couldn't probably tell you any names per se. Um, but yeah, it's just something that I came into and I just kind of just love doing it.
Very good. So So the last question that I have scheduled is like, what are your auto plans? And now that Jesse is gonna, I mean, we already know that Jesse is gonna run the Cayuga Trail. And Nathan, what about you? What are your, I mean, sure, we're gonna see you at the Minor Ducks again at one point, but in the
Yeah.
meantime,
Well, unfortunately, that is up in the air since after Mind the Ducks. I've been plagued with some hip pain, I should say. Pelvic pain right on the ilium crest. It's been kind of coming up. It flared up in the end of January, and then it started flaring up, unfortunately, the week right before the race. So, I was kind of dealing with that on and off the whole race, but so trying to get that figured out. I hope to do, if everything goes according to plan, the mini mosquito, the 50 miler in the beginning of August in Mendon, and I'm going to try it again to do the 50, the Mendon 50 in the first week in November. And if all goes well, will get back to, because I do miss it, the candlelight.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. There's a 24-hour version available.
I know I'm hoping you can. I don't know if it's just because of Webster, but I wish you could always do that for the Mind Duck one. But
Yeah. And I mean, we, as you know, the venue changed for the candlelight and the new venue. I mean, I did like, there's a lot of good perks about the old venue, and I kind of miss that
Mhm.
place as well, but unfortunately we had to move it. But a new venue is gorgeous. We'll do schedule a couple of race previews as well. So when I have that, I'll let guys know. But a lot of stuff. So Jesse, besides Cayuga trails, what do you have on agenda?
Yeah, I don't have too much more that I'm signed up for. I'm gonna do some more road races this summer, but I'm signed up for the Twisted Branch 100K in the fall. I was hoping to do the Mighty Mosquito 100 miler, but I don't think it's gonna fit. I think I'll be traveling then. Um, but I might be able to do I think they're calling it like the Mystic Mosquito. It's the 50K at night that's on the 100-mile course. I might try to do that.
Mm.
But yeah, otherwise we'll play it by ear. Oh, and the Can Lake 50. I think I'm gonna try to do that one in October.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining for this interview. It was interesting to learn more about you, Jesse, and refreshing what you Nate been up to since your last win. So hopefully see you again at the Minor Ducks and all the other races. And good luck with all your racing plans, and not just with racing, but life as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.